always been poverty, and hunger, and water scarcity in parts of the world, and those have long fueled instability, which in turn, affects, America's mission. But those things don't seem to have motivated Americans to do a lot about, widespread poverty. So why would climate change?
Because it.
I would say that because our military wasn't responding to famine in other parts of the country, other parts of the world. But when we're talking about, and we didn't have the terrorist breeding ground problem, throughout the decades in the past that we have now. Now, it doesn't mean that we didn't have conflict then, but what's occurring now is that here we have a type of energy that if we use less of it, we have the potential to mitigate those problems in the future. Now we can't measure how much that's going to be, but we know that 1 + 1 = 2. If we take away pollution, if we're able to mitigate these the effects of fossil fuels on the atmosphere, which causes these weather disruptions, then we can cut down on the amount of conflicts that happen and mitigate the problems with the terrorist breeding grounds that those create.
And the thing that we're seeing now is, once again, is just what the budget and report says. It's climate change is an accelerator to these problems. Sure. Because, like in Bangladesh, they're already building a wall because they know the sea's going to rise and there's millions of people that are going to be displaced and they're going to need somewhere to go. And that region is just going to become completely hostile, even worse than it already is. And like I said, we're going to end up, the U.S. military is going to end up there, and then you're going to have these terrorist groups going there and going to these people who have nothing, can't even feed their children. Hey, I'll give you $200 if you go plant an IED. I'll give you $200 if you go blow yourself up so that you can feed your family. I mean, these are, and you you almost can't blame them. I mean,
it's also like $3,000 in our time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
it's a fortune to them.
We got a lot of question about what's the response to this, and that is a common refrain of the denier. Well, there's always been these cyclical issues. There's always been poverty. There's always been drought. Right, but there hasn't always been 7 billion people on Earth. In less than 100 years, we've tripled the world's population with the same amount of existent resources. Now, we can continue on and put it off to tomorrow, but we're going to get caught guessing wrong on which day the oil is going to run out. That's what's going to happen. And nobody's going to want to be around on that day. There's 7 billion people using the same pile of resources. I didn't major in math, but that seems like a pretty simple equation. That means why it's so ridiculous when you say, well, we have plenty of oil. No, we have the same amount we always had. Well, way less, but we have way more people
using it.
So there's no positive outcome to continue on our path. So we can listen to old men who make a ton of money who are calculating maybe they won't be around when it runs out, or we can look out for the next generation. That's the only question in my mind. 7 billion people consuming. It has to have an impact. It's just like a law of nature. So whatever that problem was before, it's going to be times 4.
It's actually more than that because you have 7 billion people consuming, but they're also consuming at higher and higher and higher rates.
Exactly. I heard one estimate there's more people alive now than have ever lived before because the world population hung around about 200 million for most of the history of mankind. That is a scary number. And putting your head in the sand isn't going to fix it.